I, 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 He got fired from Kane, now we ain't got no shame. So we started a pod, took Yates into town.
Hey everybody, welcome to Chuck Yates Needs a Job, the podcast. This is freaking cool.
Yeah.
You're like, I had my dream list of guests I wanted to have on the podcast. James Casey was the first name I wrote down.
I love it. I appreciate you inviting me to come on to it. I'm not able to come to Houston very much. So when I do come into Houston, you're first guy I'd call and see what you're doing and hang out.
That's really cool. So let's go through the resume. The resume is Azle High School, minor league baseball player, 2 years at Rice University, drafted by the Texans in the 5th round. Were you 3 years at the Texans or 4?
4 years.
4 years at the Texans and what, 2 years in Philadelphia?
2 in Philadelphia.
I tried to blank those out. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I had to blank out you being the Eagles. Then 1 year with Denver, and you've been coaching ever since. U of H, and now you're the tight ends coach of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, so been very fortunate and been knowing you ever since the Rice days, and remember getting released from the Eagles and coming back home to Houston and having a nice bottle of wine with you.
We did. We did.
Yeah.
So let's start here. The Super Bowl. Y'all just played in the Super Bowl. What was that like?
It's you dream about the Super Bowl as a kid. You want to always get to the Super Bowl, and it was an amazing, hell of a year that we had with the Bengals this year. You're always confident knowing expecting to have a really good team this year. But, Joe Burrow obviously is a big part of that with us getting there. But just the whole, playoff run, beating the teams we did and beating Kansas City and then getting to the Super Bowl and just the excitement with the team and the family. And it's just like I dreamed about. I wish I could have done it as a player, but second best thing was to do it as a coach, and just the whole atmosphere and, Jay-Z's walking behind us on the bench pregame and the amount of people and just, how many people are watching that game and how much is riding on it. And I mean, we couldn't, it sucks that we lost the game, but it was still an amazing experience. And then, me personally, it's just all the family that was able to go and experience that whole week in LA. And we were at the UCLA's campus. So our hotel was right next to our practice facility. So we got to experience the LA lifestyle for a little bit. And it was amazing. I mean, it was expensive because I had, all my family was going, and I think they give you
suddenly they expect you to pay.
Oh
right?
yeah, and I was willing,
yeah.
and I was willing to. I wasn't expecting anybody to fly out to LA and pay for everything themselves because it's so expensive. But I think you get 15 tickets, and I used all my tickets for friends and family and hotels, and so by the end of it, you end up spending a bunch of money, but you're also getting the extra check for the Super Bowl. So I think I just now finished paying all those tickets off because it was kind of taken out of my salary, from every month. So it's finally paid off, but it was more than worth it though. It was an amazing experience.
So 2 things about the Bengals this year. One, is Joe really as cool as he seems?
Yes.
Yeah.
He is unbelievable demeanor. Like, he's the real deal. All the intangibles that you want out of a player. Like, he's never rattled, and he is, of course, very confident. And he's also got one of the best things is just that he's got a killer instinct. Like, he's holds guys accountable, but when it's time to make the big play, and he wants to bury teams and bury play. He wants to be that guy that is the one that everybody's looking at to make those plays. And it's amazing to be. From my coaching perspective and me trying to grow as a coach and try to get to coordinator, head coaching job one day. Like, it's been great to be around Burrow and just be able to see how he is, to see what that guy looks like. And also our head coach, Zach Taylor in Cincinnati, is very similar to Joe. Like, they're real calm and they're always the same, always poised, never flustered. They're the same guy every single day. And I'm fortunate just to be around, Zach Taylor, our head coach. And then of course, NFL, any football, it's all about the quarterback. So sometimes you get lucky and you get that one quarterback, and we're all trying to ride his coattails now.
Yeah, no, I always say that the quarterback gets way too much credit when they do well, way too much blame when they do poorly. But at the end of the day, no crappy quarterbacks go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So,
they deserve the credit because the amount of, just information they got to know and how smart they got to be and just the poise they got to have back there in big game. Because a lot of quarterbacks you'll see they'll be really good, and all of a sudden they get to a big game or a crucial point of the game, and they make they can just consistently make those errors to not win those games late. And when you playing in the like the playoffs and the AFC Championship game at Kansas City, and you're just there and you're feeling that environment, and it's amazing to watch a quarterback like Burrow that can go out there and be poised and make those plays and make those throws. He hit Jamar Chase on a corner route, late in the game against Tennessee. That was, like just the amount of poise that he has to go out there and make those plays in those critical situations. It's easy to talk about doing those things, but to actually be in those moments and to feel what it's like and to feel the fans in the crowd and know how many people are counting on you and then to go out there and do it. It's rare. It's rare to have a guy like that, and hopefully he does it for a long time for my sake and so I can keep my job for a while.
Right.
But just like Tom Brady, it's the amount of big games that he's been in and won and holding his teammates accountable. It's very rare to have a guy like that.
Yeah, no, it was funny. Nate Newton used to always say, before Emmitt Smith, I was just a big old fat guy. Once Emmitt Smith showed up, I was an all-pro. That worked out. Yeah, so.
That's me. We first 2 years in Cincinnati, we weren't great. We had some a lot of deals, but when you get a guy like Burrow, and it makes you look like a good coach too. So
well, and did y'all see when you're scouting him? Are you able to tell the intangibles from all your background work, talking to coaches, talking to him? Can you see it, or to some degree, do you kind of get lucky with that? How much do you know versus you're able to tell?
I can speak to the tight end position because the beautiful thing about the NFL is you're not recruiting like you do in college, and you're really just focused on your position group and you're evaluating the film. But you can get a sense in my position for sure. I'm sure our head coach and our offense coordinator, our quarterbacks coach did with Burrow, and it was kind of a no brainer. Even going in the draft just from all the reports of him but you can meet with them. You can go to their college and talk to them. They have all kinds of psychological evaluations they do. Now you can Zoom meet with them. So you can get a good sense of a guy, just like we are talking to each other now. Once you sit down and talk to a guy and you hear about him from everybody that's around him, you can get a real good sense of what kind of mindset and demeanor he has.
Because one of the things I found interesting, so we'll get into this in just a second, but you and I met because you went to Rice. And you were cool enough to let me go to the combine with you when you worked out at the NFL combine. And for people that haven't been to the NFL combine, it's one of the greatest sporting events for fans because it's not really a fan event. Nobody can go into Lucas Stadium. Everybody that's running the 40-yard dash and all that, literally the only people sitting in there are coaches, GMs, and the like. So there aren't really fans there. That being said, everybody from the NFL's there. And if you're there as a fan, all the GMs want to talk to you. So, I met Belichick when I was there with you. He kind of pulled me aside. Oh, tell me about this Casey guy. So it was wild. I wanted to say that 3 or 4 days we were there, I met 2/3 of the GMs, and they all wanted to talk to you because they're all like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Well, I'm here with James Casey. Oh, tell me about the kid.
Well, you must not have made a great impression with Belichick because they didn't. I drafted in 5th round. They didn't take me.
Yeah, and they kept trading up in that draft, or they would trade down. I kept going, okay, this is it. Yeah, so I sucked. Sorry.
Well, that's one of the things I'm most proud of, though, is I wasn't drafted until the 5th round. And, I don't know which number of tight end I was, but I was down the list of tight ends that were drafted that year. But I outlasted a lot of those guys playing-wise, being able to play 7 years. And that's, we talk about you can get a good sense of a guy when you're talking to him and you kind of see what his attitude is and talking to other people, but you can't. It's hard to really tell like how somebody's going to react when they actually do get into an NFL locker room and they're playing in NFL games and learning NFL offense or defense. That's a harder sense to judge how they're going to react to and getting that money.
Yeah,
and if they're going to start getting full of themselves or getting entitled a little bit. But speaking of the combine, it's a unbelievable experience. And now they do let fans in. Just changed.
Oh, did they really?
This year. I think there was like 10,000 people this year. It was much different this year going to the combine. They, as a coach, I'm just there really just kind of sitting around, like watching the players and interviewing them and talking to them. But when it gets to the actual drills on the field, you're sitting in the stands like a fan, just kind of watching them and really trying to watch kind of what they're doing in between drills. Or, you're just, kind of, some of it's just coach speak. You're really just kind of watching it, but you kind of already know a good amount, but there was like 10,000 people and they were playing music and a little bit this year. So they're trying, you can see now the NFL, it's all about money. They're trying to create like fans can come in and try to create some entertainment value to it now. So it's probably not going to be like it was back then anymore. They're going to try to make it a big deal.
Man, that was so great. We, cause that was back when I got introduced to St. Elmo's Steakhouse. And so I think we went to dinner. Didn't we go to dinner one night? Yeah. The tomahawk steak. Didn't you get the tomahawk ribeye?
Yeah. And the, what is it? The shrimp cocktail thing.
The shrimp cocktail with all the horseradish stuff on it. That was crazy.
I still remember that because now I go back as a coach to the combine and I'm part of it, like working it. So now I'm still going to some of these places and just still remember. I always remember, of course, your playing career and back in 2009 when I went through that and then hanging out with you and just the stress that was involved with that and just how you kind of, as a player, you're hanging on every little bitty thing and you're trying to get drafted as high as you can. And, looking back, I wish I could have relaxed a little bit and maybe I performed a little bit better than I did.
Well, and I mean, at the end of the day, you've got that weird stuff of you got to make a certain weight, but then you got to go run the 40 and
and now as a coach, you see the players. I mean, I got 2 boys now that are 12 and 8 and the amount of stuff that goes into these athletes now, like now when the players get there, some will be like at midnight, like in the hotel, like doing like little drills to try to like, but try like warm up things to try to whatever they're doing to maximize how fast they're going to run that next day. Like you'll see them like doing little, whatever, like they'll be, doing stretches or some weird things up and down the hall. They all got like personal trainers that are out there, like working with them like throughout the whole time. And it's a really stressful environment for the players because they got MRIs. And like you said, I don't know if people really understand how much goes into that combine the players are like doing stuff nonstop throughout the whole thing. And it's the biggest job interview in the world. There's so much money at stake for these guys of how they perform. Like there's a lot that goes into what they do for that one day on the field. For the combine.
I mean, it's ridiculous that literally a lineman can make $250,000 by running a 5.1 instead of a 5.3.
Yeah. Everything's so particular NFL wise because everybody's really good coaches, really good players. And sometimes the difference is like size and length and drafting wise, if you're going to draft a guy and you're going to miss on a guy, you would rather miss on a guy that has the measurables, the big, because those are the guys that potentially can turn into the superstars. And that's what hurt me in the draft because I didn't have like the unbelievable measurables. I'm only 6'3". I had really short arms. So you fall in the draft just because there's more, they would rather, and a lot of it's just covering their own ass a little bit as NFL teams because if you draft a guy that's got the prototype size and speed and all that stuff and he doesn't pan out, like as a scouting department, you're saying, well, he had all the intangibles, you just didn't make him better,
Yeah, no, you do. We used to say managing money, half of our job is to make money. The other half of it is to not look stupid.
Yeah.
And if you go out there and say, okay, I'm going to draft a 6'3", 225-pound tight end because we're going to be able to put bulk on him. He's got short arms and he doesn't pan out. You just look stupid.
Yeah, it is that. And they draft the same way. It's like you want to hit on everyone and you want to, get the superstars, the Pro Bowlers, but more importantly is you don't want to completely miss on a guy because if you miss on a first, second, third round guy, it really, that can kill your team because you're probably not going to release that guy because you're not going to spend that amount of money and then just release him a year or two. So you really got to, but he's going to be on your roster and he's probably going to play, especially if he's a first rounder. So you really you don't want to miss, on the guy. You'd rather, as long as you get a good player, you'll be all right.
So give me one draft wartime type story that people would be surprised to hear.
I mean, it's strange as a coach in the NFL, and because just assuming what I thought would be the case is you go into the draft and it's draft day and you're the coach, you're the tight ends coach, and it's like third round or whatever, and they're drafting a tight end. Just the stories that it's not anything crazy because I also can't divulge too much of the good stuff too, but it's like you may. The Bengals is a little different because we are involved a lot more as coaches with the scouting process because we don't have a lot of scouts. But a lot of teams, you kind of give your reports on the guy and you rank all your guys and you say where you think they would get drafted in the rounds. But it's really the scouting department and the general managers are the ones that's making those picks. So you may have a guy ranked really far, really down the list, but they don't. And you'll just be watching the draft like anybody else. And they may draft the guy that you weren't a fan of, like, and that's the guy you got. You can't. That's why you
tear up that report.
It's like, well,
let's put that away.
Then it would. I haven't had that situation, but I've heard a bunch of stories like that. Like they didn't like a guy, and then all of a sudden they drafted him in the 3rd round, and they're like, well, now it's just you try to do your best, and like anything, once you get the player in your room, like you're trying to do as much as you can to help him and make him the best player. But I actually love how it is with the Bengals because we do have way more of a say-so as far as evaluating because we only have like 5-6 scouts. So the coaching staff with the Bengals are a lot more involved in watching all the guys and giving reports on all the guys and ranking all the guys. And we work with our scouting department as opposed to other teams. The position coach may only be assigned to watch like 5 or 6 guys in their position and then go to a couple pro days. And other than that, it's the scouting department that's watching all the guys, and they're going to be the ones making a decision. But so you just kind of get who you get on a lot of other teams. They don't have much say. A lot of other coaches.
So another fellow Rice guy, Will McClay, who works for the Cowboys. He was a cornerback at Rice back when I was there, and he's been a Dallas guy his whole career. He played for the Arena team. He coached the Arena team. The Jones family really likes Will. Supposedly one of the things he's done, because he's taken over the draft, I guess the last 5 or 10 years, however long it's been, is he made all the scouts and the coaches get together for like day-long workshops of a coach saying, hey, here's what I use an outside linebacker for. I need this, this, and this, just so the scouts understand the system and can take that into account when they're doing it.
That's really smart, and I don't think a lot of teams do that. I think that's just it's kind of like every job. It's the ego stuff with some teams where you're there to the general manager, the scouting department that, they think they know best. And you're just a coach. You don't know how to evaluate guys. You just coach the guy. You don't know how to coach, but we do the same thing though. We make like profile tapes of our position and what we do offensively, and the things that we're going to ask them to do during the season. And then we'll send it to the scouts so they can kind of know exactly what we're looking for in a guy. And we also have, we write up reports on what our position entails as a coach, like your, height, weight stuff that you're looking for, the speed you're looking for, the attributes that you're looking for, and the even mindset stuff. I'm looking for a guy that's like, has this kind of mindset, smart, tough, all whatever it is. And we'll so that everybody can see that and look at what the coach is thinking when they're coaching the guy, because we're going to be the guy working with the guy. And yeah, some guys may look beautiful out there and run fast and all that stuff, but especially like tight end, if they're not very smart, it's going to be really tough because there's a lot of stuff you got to know as a tight end. And if they don't have, short area quickness, it's going to be really tough to be a good tight end. So sometimes that stuff gets lost in certain teams, and that's why the draft is not an exact science, and it's tough to all these things that go into it to get the right guy. And some years there just may not be a decent amount of guys at that position either. So it's kind of year to year as well. I think it's great. What we do is the coaches work with the scouting department and they listen to us, and we give our reports on every single guy with everybody, and they hear us talk about each one of the guys. And so I think over the last couple of years, I think we've been pretty good, and I think we'll continue to hopefully be really good with the Bengals just because we work together well, and there's not a lot of ego involved with our team. And Mr. Brown's awesome with the Bengals because he's still involved in the process as the owner. He's there at every practice. He sees us practicing, so he's really. I don't know, like Jerry Jones with Dallas is like that too, and I don't know how all this stuff works there, but I know Mr. Brown is like, he pays attention. Like he's watching, he's listening to the coaches, and he doesn't have a big ego. He's a real modest guy, and it's been really in the history of, Paul Brown and
absolutely.
And Mr. Brown being his son. Like it's just, I don't think Paul Brown gets enough credit as what he should as all the stuff that he invented and how big he was into football.
Oh yeah.
All the stuff that he did.
No, there's a phenomenal amount of history there.
Yeah.
And, it was interesting that you guys are doing it that way because you're too young to remember this, but back in kind of the Tom Landry days, so think the 60s and the 70s, the Cowboys got credit for being this great drafter because of the computer. They used the computer.
Gil Brandt, I think.
Yeah, Gil Brandt was.
Yeah.
And really the beauty behind the computer was not that it had an algorithm. You put in certain measurements and it spit out, this is a great player. Actually, what the computer did was because everybody ran their scouting department back then by region. So you had a guy in Florida, you had a guy in Texas, and that guy would look at all the players. And what the computer did is it took everybody's rankings and then it measured those players 3 and 5 years later in their NFL career. And what it found was the guy in Texas wasn't necessarily a great evaluator of talent for every position, but he was really good at running backs. And the guy in Florida would be really good at quarterbacks and wide receivers. And so what the Cowboys started doing early on is taking tape, and they would make all their scouts watch all the tape, and then they would wait. If the guy in Texas who's good at running backs, they'd give his vote more weight in the final rankings of all the players. And so it was really just ranking the scouts. Okay, how well did these guys do? And what they found out was people did a much better job by position as opposed to by geography. But you did it by geography just because you couldn't afford to fly people all over the place.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You're teaching me some things. Like that's the same thing now with our scouting department. We, they have areas, but they're also assigned to certain positions, which, that's good just to hear the kind of the history of it. But now with the computers, it's extremely advanced, all the stuff we can find out about players and the personality tests, and also just through PFF, the Pro Football Focus. I mean, if I'm watching a tight end, there's all these different cut-ups I can make, and I could look at every time, he was in a 3-point stance on the right side, every time he dropped a pass, every time he broke a tackle. I mean, every time he got a penalty. I mean, you can look at anything you want to about the player, and you can watch cut-ups, which is just, plays of one particular thing. Every time he was on the play side of a zone run scheme, every time he was in gap scheme front side, so it's much easier now as a coach to really specifically watch certain scenarios. Every time he was in pass protection, like quarterbacks, I mean, you can watch anything you want to, every third down incomplete, every interception, all that stuff. We can get very detailed in what we're watching.
There are 2 great examples of that in history. One, I think it was when Steve Mariucci became the offensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. I think I'm right about the coach. But anyway, he just went and he watched every single play that Joe Montana threw an interception on. And he noticed that 80% of the time when Joe Montana threw an interception, it was based on 2 play calls. So he just got rid of them in the playbook.
Yeah.
I mean, it was literally as simple as just we're never gonna go call those 2 plays. And next year, Joe Montana, I think, threw 4 interceptions. Or
that's fascinating too. And that's just every time you're telling the kind of like with Burrow and our head coach Zach Taylor, it's the same kind of deal with them. Like we'll be in the offensive install meetings and we're installing the plays, and it's almost like Burrow's a coach as well, even though he's a young player, because Zach may say something, installing a play or something, and then he'll ask Burrow about his, a certain thing about what he likes or don't like. And there's getting input from the player because they're the ones out there doing it, and you want to make sure they have confidence in the plays that they're running. And certain things Burrow doesn't like doing. He doesn't like certain play concepts, and he'll voice that, and then we just don't run that play.
Yeah. Well, the other great example too was Penn State upset Miami in the Fiesta Bowl, and that was back when Vinny Testaverde was the Heisman-winning quarterback for Miami, and Joe Paterno was sitting there watching tape, and supposedly 18 hours into watching tape, he noticed that anytime there was a third down and it was an important type play, Vinny Testaverde would look at his primary target while calling the signals. So he'd be like, ready, and he'd look over at whoever the wide receiver was that was the primary, set, hike, and then run the play. And so Paterno installed that, or told his defense about that. And, they'd sit there at the line and, Testaverde would be ready, and he'd look over and they'd just shift. That would be the double coverage. And it's all just finding the tendencies on tape.
It's fascinating just being in it and being the coach and just being a coach in the NFL, and just it's one of the biggest stages in the world. It's $1 billion industry. Just seeing how much goes into the preparation for a game, that stuff happens all the time with us. Like now you can watch the TV copy of every game on our computer system. We have DV Sports, so you can watch the play that's filmed from our filming department from a bunch of different angles, and you watch the different angles of the play, and then you can also watch the TV copy of that play, so you can hear. A lot of times now with the sound, you can hear a lot of stuff. on the TV, you know, so we have guys that are just, and every team does, you know, the Patriots are famous for it, but you're just listening for certain calls, you know, the center may be making at the line of scrimmage or what the quarterback's saying, and you can pick up a lot of things each game on what you're kind of anticipating happening. And every team's doing that, so you just got to be smart as our team of knowing that if we do have tendencies or we're saying certain things, we got to be changing it up. And you know, you don't just the amount of work that goes into the pre-snap and the communication is it's fascinating how much it's any industry. You know, I'm sure with oil and gas stuff, it's the same way. Like the people that aren't in it, it's hard to really understand like how much goes into each play and how specific everything needs to be and how critical, especially NFL, you get 60, 70 plays and how important every single play is and to win games in the NFL and how hard it is. The amount of work that goes into each play, trying to get their tendencies and try not to have your own tendencies. And it's a lot of mental stuff is going into each play.
Yeah, no, and it's wild for me listening to a really good analyst, like listening to Romo, where they'll run a replay and it's like, see how they had the guard pull on these 5 plays? It's setting up this play, you know, so they're expecting the guard to pull and he doesn't pull or whatever. It's amazing the chess match there, because it's not just, okay, we run this play. It's like we've set this play up for the last, you know, and you're saying it's even games. We did that in week 3 to set this play up in week 7.
Oh yeah, everything is extremely specific, and you're trying, like the really good offenses and really good teams, like they have a system. So they'll run certain plays. They have things that they can hang their hat on, and that like ours is, you know, under center wide zone. Like that's what we run, and off of that we have play actions and, you know, keepers and screens, but as you run each play, and we get these pictures on the sidelines so you can see what the defense is doing. You're trying to set up certain things later on in the game and even later on in the season, and you're also just the pictures, you can see exactly what the defense is doing on the sideline that you get. So you may see a linebacker out of position on a certain play, and then you'll come back to that same play, and then you're trying to, you know, take advantage of that. But the defenses are smart too, so they'll change their defenses too. So it's a chess match all the time, and it's, you know, we had a couple plays this year against like the Ravens where Burrow, you know, he would have a signal in the backfield to change a route on a blitz package, and we did it a couple times early in the year, and we knew Wink Martindale with the Ravens was really going to be tied into that signal, and we knew they blitzed a lot. So we called the play, and it was, you know, he was signaling as if it was going to be that play that we always do, but it was a fake signal, and they jumped the route, and then we hit CJ Uzomah on a touchdown on a big play like that. Like the amount, like that was one of the, you know, those things are just like, that's what's fun about coaching, because you get the defense and you get their coaching staff on a play that it was really all, you know, it's all about coaching. Like we set them up on a certain play and fake signal to them and then hit them for a touchdown.
You know, Vince Lombardi back in the day sent the Green Bay Packers playbook to every other team during summer camp and would just say, hey guys, here's the plays we're going to run, just so you know. Wow. Isn't that wild how far we've come?
There's all these stories about, you know, teams leaving out their playbooks after or their scheme after the game. You go to the locker room and you get their scheme. So next time you play them, you save it all, because you're going to be playing those teams down the road. So you want to know as much information as possible. And also teams like, I think it might have been Mike Leach is like famous for like, you know, because you script out the first 15 plays usually of what you're going to run. Famously, like as they walked through the stadium before the game, like he left out a fake first 15 plays, and then whoever they were playing got in. It's like, oh yeah, it's going to be a bubble the first play, and they ran like a bubble and go. So he set them up by sending a fake. He set out a fake diagram of the first 15 plays, and then they ran opposite of what it said basically on that sheet. Which and the gamesmanship.
Oh, and Al Davis back in the day, if he was playing a team and they had recently cut somebody, he'd always sign them for a day, scrub them down, and then cut them.
Yeah, that happens all the time, like with quarterbacks or linebackers, where you're playing a certain team, or you may have that guy on your roster who was at that team the last season, and you're not trying to be manipulate or anything, but I mean, if you're playing the team and it's a big game, like you want to learn as much information as possible and what their calls are and what their thought process is. And
Well, and if you're the player, you want a paycheck.
yeah,
So I mean, I'd kind of
they're the ones paying you. Yeah, if you if they want to
Cap calls me after Kane booted me, I'm gonna sing my guts out.
I played my last year was with the Broncos with Peyton Manning. We won a Super Bowl. I got fired before the 5th game because I was old and just couldn't run very well anymore. And that was my last year. But being with Peyton Manning, it was fascinating just to see how he operates. And he would have his own meetings with the players and the skill position guys before our regular meetings. And he would go through like 2-minute offense stuff where we're signaling and we're calling plays. But he would only allow the people that were going to be in the game in those meetings, like even the practice squad guys and even coaches wouldn't be in that meeting because he really wanted to keep everything like really secret. And so he would be really detailed on like what his signals were going to be and what his calls were going to be at the line of scrimmage, making sure that the other team didn't have any advantage knowing it. And then if we ever played a team, like within your division, you're playing them the second time, he would always be real detailed on watching the TV copy himself and like hearing what he's saying and seeing what he looks like and to try to do those same things and run a different play. Just the amount of like attention and detail that he had was fascinating.
They say Brady's the same way too, that Brady's in there meeting with the offensive coordinator, just him and the offensive coordinator going through all those things.
Yeah, the NFL gets a bad rap sometimes because of the superstar players that, maybe have big egos or get in trouble. But a lot of the NFL is guys who a lot of these guys are really smart and they work really hard. And it's like any job. I mean, they're in there nonstop, like studying, trying to get any advantage they can. Because a lot of money is at stake, but the amount of work that goes into each game and like special teams wise, like these guys probably never, like me, like most people would have no idea who I was, but I played 7 years in the NFL and I wasn't the ego type guy. I was in there studying, trying to do everything I possibly could to gain an advantage for that game and play as long as I could.
That's amazing. Hey, let's do this because I think you have literally the most amazing human story. So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you about it. Take me back to Azel in high school and take me back to your junior year in high school. You mind talking about that? No,
yeah. I don't talk about it often, but I have no problems talking about it. Just because, my mother passed away when I was a sophomore in high school.
Oh, it's sophomore year.
Yeah. And because I don't know who's listening to this, but if there's somebody listening to it that maybe, everybody has some bad things happen or some tragedies. And I grew up in hardly any money at all, real poor, like, living in a trailer. But the biggest thing happened was my sophomore year, I was at school. My mother worked nights and like cleaning houses. And so she came home and she slept during the day, but I was at school in biology class. And I think it was just a student came in with a little sheet that says, you need to go to the office. And as I go to the office, like I have a half brother and he was standing there and he was just told me like right when I got there, he said the trailer burned down and your mom was inside. So like immediately, like whole life changed. And so I leave biology class. I go, he says your trailer burned down, your mom's inside. So, I get in the truck with him and we drive to where I was living and it's still like smoking and my mom was inside and the trailer burned down. I literally lost everything. And of course that's, crushing and there's, not a lot of good things coming out of that. But I was real down, felt terrible. Of course, it's like, why me? Like, why does, like, I'm sure certain people in that situations may just say, screw it and just give up or turn to drugs or just whatever. But I was, I felt like 4 or 5 days, of course I was crushed. My mom passed away. I lost literally everything I had besides the backpack and the clothes I was wearing. And my dad was there, but he was more of a hippie type guy. Not a bad guy at all, but he wasn't the, traditional responsible parent. So he was there, but it wasn't, like he was just going to take care of me and whatever. But after those, it was like 4 or 5 days and I was, of course, down and felt terrible. But then I finally just had an epiphany. It's like, like, what am I going to do? I can sit here and feel sorry for myself and just walk around crying and, holding my head down. Or I can say, what would my mom would have wanted? Would she wanted me to just walk around sulking and feeling sorry for myself, or would she wanted me to make something of myself? So I just once that happened, I was like, okay, well, I need to make something myself. And I was always motivated, but then after that, I was even more motivated just to do whatever I could to be successful. And I was always good in school and sports, and a lot of my community helped me. Like I grew up with hardly any money. So, I mean, after my mother passed away, like a bunch of people like donated clothes and gave me like some money, little, like I guess would be like a GoFundMe now situation. We didn't have that back then, but so I said, just, went back to school and just continue to make good grades and continue to do well in school. And then, it's one of those things that sucks, but I know there's a lot of people that have bad things happen. And, now that I'm older and I've read a lot of things and thought through a lot of things, like it's really just like, yeah, bad things happen, but you can control the controllables, like what can you control? Like your attitude, your effort, and how do you want to live? Do you want to just, what kind of person do you want to be? Like what, so fortunately, that was a bad situation, but I still, you don't get over that, but I was able to not just go completely downhill afterwards, which, if anybody is out there that's listening to this and they've had something really bad happen, like, doesn't mean that it's the end of your world. Like what would whatever that bad thing, if it was a person you knew that was, that passed away, like what would they have wanted? And then that was kind of my thought process was like, what would she have wanted me to do? What would, and then after I thought about that, I was like, okay, she'd want me to be successful, have a good life and have my own kids and all that stuff. That's kind of my thought process has always been.
And it was amazing because you went and you played minor league baseball for 5 years, I think. I think your quote was you couldn't hit the curveball or
I couldn't throw a strike.
You couldn't throw a strike with your curveball. But then came back to Rice, played football for 2 years, but you wound up graduating from Rice in what, 2.5, 3 years?
6 semesters. Yeah, I graduated.
Yes. Yeah. 6 semesters, Rice, with a 3.9.
It was, I went downhill my GPA a little bit at the end because I had a kid, but it was like my overall GPA, I think, was a 3.64, and I graduated in 6 semesters and 3 majors and a minor. But going back to my mom too, was that once she passed away, like I had a lot of help too. Like I had my wife now, we've been married 16 years. Like I started staying with her some. I had my athletic trainer and his wife, which is basically like my parents now. Like they let me start living with them because my dad was there, but he had even a worse trailer than what we were living in that burned down. So it's like it wasn't sustainable to stay there. And I had a lot of people helping me and, like good people around you, because no matter how hard you work or, how good you are at certain things, you're going to need a lot of help. You're going to need help. You need people to support you and be there and help you. And yeah, I mean, I was always a motivated person. And then, after that happened, I was even more motivated. And then I had people around me helping me and I've to this day, I'm still like that. Like I'm really motivated in whatever it is to try to be the best at it. Not just good. I want to be, I don't only want to do anything unless I can try to be the best in the world at it. And I'm just really narrow focus on what I'm doing and trying to be really good at it. And just because I don't want to let the people around me down, and I want to set an example for my kids too, my boys.
Yeah, no, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you wrote me a note even before we'd met, because you had the Chuck and Kim Yates scholarship at Rice. That's how we met. The athletic department reached out and said, "Hey, we got a special guy coming in. We think you would pair really well with." And the note laid out that story, and I remember the line that you kind of closed it with, something to the effect of, "No one will ever work harder than me on the field or off the field. You will never be embarrassed by anything I do." And I remember bawling my eyes out reading that letter. That was pretty powerful stuff. And you're cool to tell that story because I brag on you every chance I get with that story, and it means a lot because it's really easy to go get drunk. It's really easy to go buy drugs. It's really easy to say screw it and just give up. And you didn't.
Yeah, I appreciate you telling. I mean, I remember that vaguely. I don't remember exactly what I said, but when I came to Rice after, I grew up really poor and I played minor league baseball, but it wasn't like I had any money. I was living in like really crappy hotel. I mean, we travel in really crappy hotels in the minor leagues. Like I stayed in a really crappy apartment, and a lot of stuff happened. But I ended up at Rice playing football, and when I got to Houston at Rice, it's not like I've never even been to like a really nice steakhouse or a really nice restaurant. I've never like ridden in like really nice cars or had really nice places to stay at still. Like I've never had a house, and so I was kind of like a Neanderthal kind of coming to Rice. Like I've watched TV and stuff, but not like I had cable TV when I was growing up. Not like I was around anybody that was really rich and successful. So just getting to know you, because you were my scholarship sponsor, and I got really lucky that you were my scholarship sponsor, and we got to have one dinner with the compliance person was there. It was strictly nothing illegal there. And then but when I got done playing.
You know why Rice, why the NCAA can look at this and say that Rice doesn't cheat? Because if I was going to cheat, we'd win.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. That's all.
Well, now
I'm
they
saying.
got the NIL stuff where you.
I know we need to figure out how to do that. But no, it was great. We went to dinner, and this, usually it's an 18-year-old freshman going to dinner, and you have compliance there, and we were kind of sitting there at dinner, and you were really quiet. You were very shy. Your wife Kylie, of course, is Miss Outgoing and chatting the whole thing, and I remember turning to compliance going, James played minor league baseball, so he's at least 21. Can we go next door to K's and get a beer? And you just kind of look like, yeah, that'd be great. And compliance was just like, okay, I guess so. And we wound up going to K's.
Yeah, it was. I remember that, and I remember like just simple things, like even after I graduated, like going out to dinner with you and going to like some nice restaurants and just learn. Like even though I was 23 when I went to college, and then 24, I guess I was drafted when I was 25, so I was already married, and when I went to college, but I still never experienced a lot of like the fancy things, like even like going to valets and things like that were new to me. So just hanging around with you, like just kind of watching you and like seeing how you're supposed to act in nice places and seeing how to do the menus and like, I mean, sounds silly, but like even stuff to like that was different, unique. And
I'm gonna slightly embarrass you here, but you've already kind of fessed up to a lot of it. You asked me one time what the 19 meant next to something on a menu, because you'd never seen a menu that didn't have like
dollar signs.
5.99.
Just said 19. I was looking at all the numbers. I remember that as well. Like the little things like that, like just seeing how to order and like what you're supposed to look like and dress. And not that I'm like a dummy or anything. I kind of like was aware of some of these things, but still haven't done it before. And I'm also very introverted. I'm not like my wife that goes around talking to everybody. But that's also helped me be successful, because I'm not really concentrating on going and talking to everybody and going on social media and like commenting on everything. Like I'm really like when I decide I want to do something and I got a goal, like going to Rice and trying to be really good at football in schools, like that's all I'm doing. I mean, I'll have some entertainment here and there, but I don't need to be out talking to everybody.
I will say this to all the NFL owners out watching this podcast, because I'm sure they all listen to Chuck Yates Needs a Job. The podcast is, I will say this, you are an introvert, but when you're sitting at the table and you start talking, everyone shuts up and listens. Remember the dinner I had at my house where all the guys came over and we were making steaks, because Kim and the kids were up in Telluride.
Yeah.
And you came over for that. I remember we were all sitting around and everybody maybe had one too many glasses of wine and blow hard and talking, and you started talking, everybody just shut up. So
that's,
yes,
I guess,
you command the room.
Yes. I'm also pretty cynical a lot of times just with people and just observing things and seeing people not being the best types of people. So I don't really try to reach out to too many people and try to get a bunch of relationships, not deep relationships with certain people, because I'm just to kind of seeing throughout what I see around, I'm just seeing that may not go well for me down the road. So I just stick to what I do and my wife and my kids. And if it was like NFL owner is listening though, it's not like I'm, I don't enjoy talking to people, but I just don't. When I find people that I like though, that I think are good people, then okay, I'll open up and talk to you and get a relationship. But other than that, I'm really just. I mean, I guess it probably sounds to people listen like boring or whatever, but I'm probably am boring to most people. But I'm also focused on what I'm trying to do and try to be good at just a certain amount of things, not everything, just a couple of things I want to be really good at.
So tell me the quick story about being at Rice, where you played. How many positions did you play in a game?
They say 7, but I mean, I don't know exactly what it was, but the best way, when I came to Rice, I was 23. I was married. I've luckily got a scholarship somehow, and they gave me a scholarship to play defense, even though I played quarterback as a kid. But I was like, okay, whatever, I'll take anything. Like, it's Rice University, and I get an opportunity to play college football. But I learned from playing minor league baseball and getting fired from that, and really, that's, you're thinking like, I'm 18 years old at Azle High School, no money, mom passed away, all that stuff, and then I go play minor league baseball for 4 years. I'm thinking I'm going to be a big leaguer and an all-star, and it didn't work out. I couldn't throw strikes, and I was a pitcher, couldn't throw strikes, and you learn a lot. I'm 18 to 20. I think I was done playing at 22. I'm 22 years old, and I've already failed at a completely career. I've based that my career. I got fired from a career, and I can never do that again. Never happen again. At 22 years old, so you learn a lot of valuable stuff with that. You're 22, and you're like, okay, I screwed that up. Like, I didn't make it to the big leagues, and that's another thing that just completely changed. I mean, not changed, but that's a big motivation for me. Is like, okay, I got fired from a career, and I can't even do that career anymore. They don't even want me. I can't even do it. And so when I went to Rice, I was like, there is no, like, when I was writing you that letter, I meant it. Like, there's nobody going to outwork me. I promise you. And you can ask anybody that I played with at Rice, any of the coaches, like, there's nobody that did, like, in the entire country. I mean, I was almost borderline, like, crazy person in a good way, though. I mean, I was focused, and nobody's going to outwork me. And there was nothing. And so leaving baseball, it was, I'm going to have no regrets whatsoever in anything else I do. Whatever I do, once I decide this is what I'm doing, and I have a worthwhile goal of this thing, like, nobody's going to outwork me because of what happened in baseball and other stuff in my life. But so I'm not going to have any regrets when I go to Rice, and I'm not going to take a lot of shit from anybody, because baseball wise, I just felt like, and I'm not going to worry about what everybody else is doing. Baseball, I thought I was, the regrets I had getting fired from baseball, I felt like I could have worked harder, and I kind of listened to too much, even coaches. Like, I was trying to do exactly what they told me. And I'm saying a long story, but just talked about why I played so many positions at Rice. But that I've heard the 2 worst players that you can coach are the players that, and it's really stuck with me. The player who doesn't do anything you say, he doesn't, obviously that's not a good guy to coach. And then the player that does everything you say. Exactly. Yeah. And I was that guy. I did everything they said exactly. And it wasn't good for me. Like, sometimes coaches aren't necessarily telling you exactly what you need. Like, better than anybody else. And so when I went to Rice, I was not being disrespectful or anything. It was like, I'm going to do what I do, and I'm going to be respectful and learn everything, but I'm not going to, if I don't think it's going to be good, I'm just not going to tell them, but I'm not doing that. I'm doing what I know is going to be good. And I'm definitely not worried about what the hell anybody else is doing. I don't care if any of these 18-year-old college kids, and I'm 23, like, I could care less what a freshman in college is doing or sophomore. Like, I don't care. I'm here to play football. I'm here to win and be really good at school, because I'm here to play football, but I might as well be good at school. I'm kind of joking there, but I was like, yeah. And so, you probably asked my teammates when I was at Rice, like, they probably thought I was standoffish, but I wasn't a bad teammate, but I wouldn't care what they were doing. Like, I knew they were 18. I'm 23. Like, I'm not going out to your parties. I'm not going hanging out with you unless it's, unless we're going to work out,
right,
or go study the playbook or do school stuff. Like, and so when I start playing, I start off at defense, and then they move me to quarterback. Long story, but I started off at defensive end at Rice and I played all spring at defensive end during the spring. And then I talked to coaches into moving to offense, because I feel like I had to, like, campaign to then move me to offense, even though I would have played defense if they wouldn't have let me. And then we had some injuries on defense. So then they let me play defense one game, and just simple things like, I'd be on the sideline during practice, and they'd be punting the ball, and we'd be working on punt return. And I was like a freshman. I wasn't on punt return. So I'm just observing, or I wasn't a starter. I'm just observing, and we had a guy that wasn't catching punts very well. In the games, he would, like, muff them. And we sucked early on my freshman year. And I was just watching it. I'm just, as a 23-year-old college player, and I'm seeing this guy not catch the punt. And I'm a defensive end quarterback. Now I'm quarterback, and I'm just like, screw this. I'm not letting us not catching punts beat us. So I just go out there and start standing in line and start just catching punts, even though I was playing quarterback at the time. Just kind of like getting in there and just showing them I could catch it. And the coaches saw me catching it, and eventually they just put me in at punt return. It's not like they asked me to do it. I just went out there and did it. And like everything, like snapping, I was like, well, I can snap. So I would be like the backup snapper or like holding on field goals. I was like, I can do that. Because I just wanted to win so bad. I was willing to do anything. So like anything they said to do or position wise, I'd be like, I can do that. Like receiver, I was like, I can do that. I'll play receiver. And then they put me out there, let me practice, and I ended up being good at it. And so I did all kinds of stuff. And so that's why I played so many wide receiver. I played running back just because I can do that. Like I started going out to, when I was playing defensive end in the spring, we had in summer we had 7-on-7, and we would go to like Sam Houston and play them. And I was a defensive end in college, but I would talk to like Chase Clement, our quarterback, and I would find out when they were going. Even though I was a defensive end, I would just go with them as a defensive end just to watch. And generally what would happen is we'd go out there to these 7-on-7, just summer workouts, and somebody wouldn't show up. Like the running back wouldn't show up. So then I'm the only guy that's there, even though I'm a defensive end. So I go out there and play running back, even though I don't know anything about running back in 7-on-7. And just showing the players, and there's no coaches even out there, I'm just showing the players that I can run, I can catch, I can throw, I can do things offensively. So I got to play running back sometimes in 7-on-7 because nobody showed up. And then, so the quarterback, Chase, started seeing that. And then I would go out and do some receiver stuff because we needed some guys were getting tired. Even though I was a defensive end, I'd just be out there running routes. And then finally we got to, at the end of summer, they kind of watched me throw and let me move to offense. But I was playing defensive end the whole time. But long story, but the reason why I played so many positions in college is because I did not want to lose. And like I said, I was literally going to have no regrets and nobody's going to outwork me. And I was not afraid to like get out of my comfort zone and like go do things that maybe weren't comfortable to me, but if it was going to help us win, I thought I could be good at it or better than who the guy that was doing it at the time. I just did it. And then I made it, like the old adage, like make them tell you no. Just like go do something and then they'll tell you no, or they'll say, okay, you're pretty good at that.
Because I mean, was it Southern Miss? Was that the famous game that got reported because you had a sack as defensive end, you scored a rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, you may have even thrown one too, you returned a punt, you returned a kickoff, because you were the Wildcat quarterback too.
Yeah, that's definitely what started my football, like being a football player and eventually getting to play in the NFL, and now I'm coaching in the NFL. But it's really from that Wednesday night game where early on we were like 0-4, 0-5 or something. We weren't very good. I really wasn't getting to play a lot. I was a true freshman. I played defensive end in the spring, and then I went to quarterback during the fall. And all I was doing was just Wildcat quarterback. So they weren't really putting me out there a lot, which is understandable. But we got to Wednesday night. We were playing Southern Miss, and now as a coach, I'm assuming like the coaching staff just said, "Hey, let's just put this guy out there and let him play." So they finally started letting me play, and I did my quarterback stuff. I started playing some wide receiver stuff, some running back. I was on the punt team. I was a punt returner. And then I got to play defense that game because we had some injuries on the defensive line. And a story about that was like that week, like leading up to Southern Miss, I played defensive end all spring, and then I didn't get to quarterback until fall camp. So, and then we're like in game 5 or 6. So I haven't done defensive end this entire time in fall camp or anything. But like the day before the game, Coach Bailiff was like, "Hey, do you remember that defensive end?" And the defense coordinator was asking me. And I was like, "Yeah, I remember everything." Just because I really didn't, but I was like, I'm just showing them how confident I was that I can do it.
Right.
And they said, "Okay, here's your wristband thing." And I did like the morning of or the night before, we did like walkthroughs of a couple of defensive end plays. And I was just so confident that I could do it. And when I had the wristband on in Southern Miss, I was playing quarterback, and they let me do some receiver stuff. I scored a touchdown as a quarterback. And then every time we got on defense, I was an offensive player, and most guys would probably be like, "Oh man, I hope they don't put me at defensive end." But I would stand behind the defensive coordinator every drive, like just trying to get him to put me in the game. And finally, it was like a little bit later in the game, we had a couple injuries or something. And they're like, "All right, James, you're in." So I just took off, went in at defensive end. And I think I played 5 plays. I had a sack, like a half a sack, had a tackle for loss. Like I did a really good job at defensive end for only like the 5 plays I played. But that's when because then I go to the cafeteria at Rice the next day, and I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm like, okay, we won. We won the game on Wednesday night against Southern Miss. And we had, we have school Thursday. So I'm like studying, trying to get ready for school on Thursday. And then I go to school the next day at Thursday, even though we didn't get back super late. And then I go into the cafeteria at Rice and like everybody stands up and like gives me like a standing ovation as I walk in. And I'm like just flabbergasted. I didn't recognize how crazy that was. Like you're not supposed to be able to play quarterback and score a touchdown and sack the quarterback in a college football game, Division I college football game. So everybody was like noticing me and like for the first time. And then after that, I kind of took off and started getting a lot of opportunities. But it's looking back now as an old, 37 now, and as a coach, like I'm really proud of like my attitude. Like that's really hard to do at any age, to be that type of guy that's like, put me out there, let me play defensive end, like just not being afraid. And now I have kids that are 12 and 8. Like I'm trying to get that mindset with them to like, be that, that dog mentality, that tough guy. Like you're not afraid of anything. You're not afraid to get out of your comfort zone, and the confidence that takes to do that stuff.
No, that's right. Because I've so your biggest fan on the planet has always been Sarah Yates, the middle child, and you know what? Next time you start talking, don't mind me. I'm gonna go to my iPhone to see if I can find the picture. But the funny thing about Sarah Yates is, I mean, you were big and muscular and quiet, and you'd come into the house and you'd sit down, and Sarah Yates would just pop herself in your lap, and she would always, what do you want to do? I want to go see Mr. Casey play. I want to go see James Casey, and all that. But that's one of the things I always tell Sarah about, because Sarah's going to rule the world one day. I don't know if it's for good or for evil. I don't know that yet, but I know she's going to do it. And I always tell her that. It's like, look, you got to get out of your comfort zone. If you're not growing, And so, yeah.
And to this day, of course, I remember Sarah being little and like coming up and talking to me. And to this day, that's the only kid that's ever like not been like afraid of me, like wanted to come up and talk to me. Like, it's not like I'm a mean guy. And I'm never going to do, anything mean to a kid or anything like that. But I guess just the way I look, and I'm not the most bubbly of people. Like when I'm just walking around, I guess the way my face looks or something, like all kids are just terrified of me. But she was the one kid that hasn't been afraid of me. So she is going to probably rule the world just because she's not scared of, somebody like me walking around.
She's not scared of James Casey. The other great Sarah Yates line, because she wasn't afraid of you at all. Y'all were walking, I don't know if you remember this, y'all were walking, you and Kylie, each of y'all had one of Sarah's arms, and y'all were swinging her as y'all were walking down to the car. And Sarah looked up at y'all and said, y'all should have children because we're wonderful.
Yeah, we're great. I definitely remember that. And we do now. I got a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old, and two boys. It's they're just, they're fighting each other all the time, but it's the most rewarding thing that you can do is have those kids and just see them grow up, and hopefully they end up being good people. And it's frustrating though too, like because they're both big baseball players right now, and they're on really good teams in Cincinnati. But telling my story of football and NFL and minor league baseball and wanting them to be even better than me, and that's the expectation. Like the expectation is for my oldest son, Cannon, to be a first-round draft pick and to play in the big leagues and be an all-star. And same thing with my youngest son, to get his college scholarship. It's like, I'm not the type of parent that's going to be like, oh, if you don't get a scholarship. I mean, of course, if you don't get a scholarship, okay, that's fine. You have to have a backup plan, but which is probably counter to what every other parent says. But my wife's the same way. It's like, we are working to get a college scholarship and to play in the big leagues or to play in the NFL. Like that is your goal. And you need to believe it, and you need to expect that to happen. And just, they're young, they're kids, but I'm sure I was like, I don't remember what I was like that age, but I'm sure I was similar, but trying to get, and I'm like the one person, as dad, they don't listen to dad, but I'm talking through to them about the mindset that you need as a pitcher that I wasn't good at, but I know what it takes because of how bad I was. Like I learned it as a football player, the mindset you need as a hitter, the mindset you need in football, of just talking to the kids, my boys, and trying to get them to hopefully get the mindset that I have now and that I had when I was at Rice, to try to get them in that mindset early on so they can, really take off and be good.
No participation trophies in the Casey household.
No, it's not okay. That. It's not okay either. Like I have a shirt that says it's not okay. And I tell them it's never okay. Nothing is okay. Like, not that I'm being mean to them or anything, but I'm not, like if they fall down, I'm not gonna say, are you okay? If I know it's not a bad injury,
right.
Like I've been tough on them, so they're probably either going to be like, but I'm a loving father. I'm not like a crazy person, but trying to instill that toughness that it takes, because that's probably the thing that I really pride myself on, and that I'm probably most proud of as an athlete, is that I felt like I was a really tough guy. Like, I didn't miss any games in college, even though I was playing all those positions. I only missed like 4 games in NFL, played fullback, played special teams. Like, I pride myself on being a really tough person. Like, I'm not, these little minor injuries and stuff, I'm going to play through them, and tough mindset wise. But even as little kids, like, if they fell down, I would not ask if they're okay. I would just look at them and say, get up, because if they fall down and you ask them if they're okay, then they're thinking they're supposed to be hurt.
Right.
And they get attention. Yeah. It's like you're almost like coaching them to be hurt all the time.
Yeah.
I would flick them wherever it hurt. If they said when they were little, and I knew it wasn't a real injury.
Right. Yeah.
And they would fall down and they'd start crying about their shin or something. I'd say, hey, where's it hurt? Let me see it. Let me see it. Let me see it. And then I would just flick it really hard. When I knew they weren't hurt.
Right.
Training them to, okay, if you're hurt, you better really be hurt. Because if you're not, like, I'm just going to make sure it hurts.
Right.
And to train them to have a killer instinct too. Like, not literal killer instinct, but like, hopefully when they get older, they'll kind of have that mindset. If they see somebody hobbling around, but they know that person's not really hurt, they're going to attack in sports wise.
Yeah, no. And I mean, grit is the characteristic that defines success in this world. I mean, it's not intelligence, because somebody can always be smarter than you. It's not good looks, because somebody can always be better looking than you are. It really is grit. Yeah.
Grit, like determination too, a little bit. I mean, same kind of thing, but I was thinking about this last year of NFL football wise, like, and I watched my kids play baseball. There's certain people that they just find a way to get the job done. They may not be the most talented. They may not, but they find, like, tight end wise, there's certain guys that just find a way to catch the ball. They find a way to get their block done. And I was just, as a coach, anybody can coach the playbook, but I'm trying to coach these guys on mindset, motivation, understanding of why they're doing certain things, obviously technique, but that's what a lot of it comes down to me. Like, when you're talking about a tight end, as I'm coaching these guys, it's about the determination, the grit that they need to get that job done. And certain guys just have that mindset, like, I am not going to get beat. I am not going to get beat. I'm going to find a way to get this job done. And it may not be the perfect technique, but I'm going to have the mindset. This is any job. I'm going to have the mindset that I am going to be successful. I'm going to win this battle. But it's not going to be false confidence. I'm going to put the work in to get to that point to be successful. But when it gets to game time, like, just the grit and the determination to find a way to get the job done.
Yeah.
Just only certain guys have that, though. It's very rare, like, even NFL wise.
Yeah. It's interesting when everybody talks about, prime time players, and they're guys that just show up when the lights are the brightest and all. I saw a study one time in baseball, and it set up kind of the premise of, 7th inning or later, people coming to bat where they're down by 1 run, whatever the premise was that you would say is a clutch situation. And they ranked everybody's statistics. What was interesting is there truly weren't clutch players. There were just good players and bad players. And so the guy that hits 350, 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th when you're down 1 run, in the first inning with nobody on, hits 350. There was one major league player that had like a 250 batting average, and for some weird reason, late in games, he hit like 350. But outside of that, it was, who are the clutch players? It's Derek Jeter. Well, he's good all the time.
It's a good,
and that goes to your point of, guys, you can't just turn it on. You got to put the work in. You got to do all that.
And those guys like that, I'm sure, just like Jeter, like, they're good because they obviously talented, but that's only going to take you so far. You got to have a baseline, but it's just the mindset they have, the determination, the grit. Like, they are going to be successful.
Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. I mean, they say even in practice, those guys wouldn't take a moment off.
Yeah, they're always on. They're always like baseball, because my kids play baseball now. I'm trying to get the mindset to my kids. Like, every at bat is like the end of the world. It's like your last at bat that you're alive. That's how you got to treat it. You got to be like dialed in, focused, not, you're the most confident guy out there. That guy's not going to strike you out, or you're going to barrel the ball up and hit a line drive. Or if you're pitching, like, that is your mound, you are going to strike this guy out. Like, and it's got to be like that at all times. You may have thrown 3 great innings. In the 4th inning, you can't go out there and feel like you're confident. I mean, or feel like you got it made. you're going to be confident, but you got to keep that same focus at all times. Like first inning or last inning, like you're talking about. They're always on. So when they get in the big situations, it's no different. They're always like that.
Yeah.
Every play is like fourth and inches to them.
So you're a Texas guy, so you'll appreciate this because, this isn't just athletics that it applies to. It applies to everything. Johnny Lee was playing the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo back in the early 80s, right? And he got sick. And the rodeo committee's sitting there going, the agent calls the night before, hey, I don't know if Johnny's going to be able to play tomorrow. He's sick. He ate something, whatever it was. So they said, all right, call us the next morning. Phone call the next morning. And the rodeo committee's sitting there going, well, what are we going to do? Johnny Lee can't play. And there was a guy that said, you're not going to believe this, but I was in a bar in, pick a spot, Austin, Central Texas, somewhere. There were 14 people in that bar that night. But I saw this singer. It was just one of the greatest singers I've ever seen. The guy went up there, put on the greatest show and all. I think we ought to go get him. And the guy was like, the committee's like, well, we don't have a choice. That sounds great. George Strait was invited to play the Houston Rodeo, and that was what made George Strait, because he was a no-name. He filled in at the last second. They literally sent a private plane for him, flew him back. He didn't even have time for a sound check. He just walked out on stage. He was George Strait, and he blew up after that, right? He became the biggest country singer. And I tell my kids that all the time. What if he half-asses that bar show with 14 people in there? What if he gets up there and screws around and doesn't give it his all like he did? That guy never would have put him on the stage at the rodeo.
That is an unbelievable story.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look that one up.
Yeah, it's actually true.
That
Look
sounds
Google Johnny Lee, George Strait, Houston Rodeo, and there's a Wikipedia page on it.
Because I'm going to be telling that story now when I'm talking to my players.
You do need to fact check me. You've known me long enough to know you got to fact check me.
I'm going to trust but verify that one. But
I like that.
That's an amazing story. And just when he gets to the rodeo, if he's playing that small bar and he gets to the rodeo and he's able to perform and put on a show.
Yeah.
Like just the
50,000 people, 60,000.
In his mind, he's always on. He's always. My wife's gonna love that story too because she loves George Strait.
Well, I hope it turns out to be true, but it is close enough. James Casey, you were cool to come on, man. This is like a dream come true. I've been we said Sarah was your biggest fan. I hate to nudge her aside, but I've always been your biggest fan.
No, I'm a big fan of yours too. You've helped me out along the way and been very fortunate to get to know you when I was in college. And I was thinking on the drive down, that was 2007. So it's been 15 years that we've known each other, which sounds crazy. I still feel like I'm 21 in my mind. But
so let's go do this. We're gonna go get dinner. I'm gonna pay for dinner because I finished second in my fantasy football league last year, and it was all based on you telling me Joe Mixon was going to have a great year.
Yeah.
You said Joe is going to crush it this year. Yeah. So I drafted him in the third round, and he led me to a victory.
Well, he's going to have even better year next year, Joe. I'm going to keep the streak going. Yeah, because that's for my job and for our sake and our team. Like he's going to be even better this next year.
There we go.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me on.
Absolutely.